Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Hog Talk, the official IceHogs podcast. I'm team broadcaster Mike Folta, your host for the show. We had a great running the last couple episodes here on Hog Talk. Got great feedback so far. If you'd like to leave a review or leave a comment, feel free to on YouTube or if you're listening on podcast as well. But we appreciate everybody tuning in for the first couple episodes. We had GM Mark Bernard on episode 1, and then forward Zach Jordan on episode 2 as well. Today, we have on a young defenseman, former first-round pick Nolan Allan. That interview coming up a little bit later on with the young D-man. And we've also got a bold prediction, a what-if. We'll take a look at the AHL around the NHL as well. So a loaded show for you here on episode 3. But first, let's get to last weekend where the IceHogs started their 25th season of hockey. They did so on the road against the San Jose Barracuda and split a pair of games. And I had a fun little line that I was going to use for Saturday's broadcast open. I try not to script these things out too much, but I had one written out for Saturday. And of course, it got interrupted by the game presentation and the national anthem before Saturday afternoon's game out in San Jose. So I felt obliged to share it with you here on this show. But I was going to quote the country music star Toby Keith and bring you a little "Go West, young man, haven't you been told California's full of hockey, sunshine, and goals?" And noted IceHogs fan Toby Keith, I believe, wrote that line about Friday's game in San Jose, in which the IceHogs, speaking of goals, put up 7 against the Barracuda. But if Friday's game was a Toby Keith song, then Saturday's game made the weekend feel more like a Charles Dickens novel, where it was a tale of 2 games. The IceHogs lost 7-2, a total reversal of Friday's result. Also could have used a Lewis Stevenson, Jekyll and Hyde reference there, but decided to go with Charles Dickens. But pop culture references aside, we had 2 totally different scripts on Friday and Saturday in the opening weekend for the Rockford IceHogs. Hogs with a big win, scoring 7 goals, the most they've scored ever in a season opener in their AHL era. They scored 8 one time in the UHL days, but in recent memory, that's been the biggest offensive output that we've seen Rockford put on display to start a season. We had a huge game from really the top 2 lines, and some of the returning guys, David Gust, Brett Sini, Mike Hardman had himself a multi-point game. Michael Tepley had himself a goal in that contest. And also Anders Bjork, who was with the organization last year, but did not play with the IceHogs. Joey Anderson, how could you forget? 3 apples for him. But those 2 top lines really carried the mail for the IceHogs on Friday. And then we saw the rookies start to contribute a little bit later on. We saw a couple of outstanding plays from the rookie Jalen Lipin and his pro debut on Friday. One of them leading to a goal for Ryder Rolston, his first pro goal, and another one leading to the first goal of the season for newcomer Bryce Kindop, who had been with the San Diego Gulls last year. So it was fun to see the young guys on display as well. And then maybe we buried the lead a little bit, but goaltender Drew Comesso made his first ever professional start, and he stopped 34 of 36 in his first win. And not only did he get the win and make 34 saves, he also contributed on the offensive side. He assisted on David Gust's second goal. It went Comesso to Sini to Gust all the way down the ice, and Comesso became just the second ever AHL or UHL IceHogs goaltender to record assist in his debut. That was Lars Johansson, the other one, who did so all the way back in 2016. But it was really fun. You saw everything that you hope to see on Friday. You saw the returners contributing in a way that we know that they can. We also saw the young players step up and make impacts in the game as well. And then Saturday hit, and while the IceHogs did have a lead early in the second period of that game, the wheels started to fall off on Saturday a little bit, and Saturday became maybe a manifestation of some of the fears that we've heard voiced around by fans outside the organization of the IceHogs these last couple weeks, where it's going to be a young team. There's some uncertainties. Rockford looked pretty sloppy, and San Jose, even though it's just the second game of the season, they look like a desperate team in Game 2 on Saturday. Also keep this in mind, too. Rockford and San Jose both were playing just 16 hours after the conclusion of Friday night's game. So it was 2 games back-to-back in a very short span, and San Jose, after giving up the lead to Rockford in the second period, they just were the better team, and the IceHogs were stuck in quicksand a little bit. Shots in that game, by the way, 49 to 28. The IceHogs were outshot by 21 attempts in that game. Jackson Stauber was busy. He made 42 saves on 49 shots in his debut, and there are some people maybe saying the sky is falling, some comments on social media about Stauber and what have you. He lost his last 5 starts last year despite having a really good stint in the NHL. But if you watch that game, I think you would know that those 7 goals were not all on Jackson Stauber. And I think if you asked him, he would certainly say that he would like to play better in that game. But that was a team loss. And as it usually goes with 7 goals, those are not all on any one person. We'll see Stauber plenty throughout this year. So that was this past weekend. It was a lot of fun watching some of these young guys contribute. We had 6 IceHogs make their debut, their AHL regular season debut on Friday night. Of course, Jalen Lipin played a handful of playoff games last year, but as far as regular season goes, it was Lipin's first on Friday. Antti Sorella had played professionally over in Finland. It was his AHL debut on Friday as well, along with Allan, Del Mastro, Comesso, and Lipin. So fun to watch all those guys, and we'll see plenty more of them as we move along. And Ryder Rolston, if I didn't mention him in that group, but awesome to see the 2 young defensemen, Ethan Del Mastro and Nolan Allan. Those 2 guys played really well on Friday. Del Mastro running the top power play unit as well for the IceHogs. Wasn't necessarily expecting to see that. You think of guys who could run that top power play unit at the blue line. Del Mastro showed he was able to, and guys like Isaac Phillips, Philip Roos have been in that spot as well. Power play was looking good for the IceHogs. Rockford was very strong on special teams this past weekend. They put up 4 power play goals, 3 of them in that first game on Friday and then 1 more on Saturday. The PK was almost perfect. San Jose scored 1 fairly meaningless 5-on-3 goal at the end of Friday's win for Rockford. And so if you take that out, the IceHogs were flawless on the PK as well. So special teams off to a pretty good start. That'll make Coach Nightingale and Coach Klinkhammer and, of course, Coach Sorensen as well plenty happy. But that was this weekend. We also had an injury to Cale Howarth. He took a scary hit from one of the San Jose forwards. Howarth was down on the ice for a significant amount of time and finally was helped back to the dressing room. But don't expect him back this weekend. Not sure what his timetable for return is, but he's a guy who's had some concussions in the past. He had one last year in Indy, and he had one to start the year in the first night. And I had a conversation with him, and it was a private chat, but I don't think he'd mind me sharing the gist of it. This was before Friday's game. He was talking about how he was really in a good spot this year, and he was going to be happy, and he wasn't going to stress about trying to make sure he's in the lineup every night, or if he gets sent down to Indy or what have you. He was just going to enjoy playing hockey, and an awesome guy in the room, really one of the funniest IceHogs, and he took a pretty scary hit. So we're keeping him in our thoughts and prayers for sure, Cale Howarth. But moving on from this past weekend where the IceHogs went 1-1. We do have bold predictions, and we have a what if as well. Let's get to our bold prediction first. And last week it was a little bit contentious. Doug and Byron thought he'd shake things up a little bit to start out on our first bold prediction of the year last week. He was saying the IceHogs would have double-digit wins against the Chicago Wolves this year. Well, our bold prediction here in episode 3 is not quite so contentious, but it comes from Manny in Winnebago, who says, after watching the first couple of games, Manny says Drew Comesso will emerge as the number 1 goaltender in Rockford, and he will be an all-star by February. So a couple points to that, Manny. First is Comesso emerging as the number 1. That's not that far off. I mean, there's 2 goaltenders on the roster right now. One of them's got to be the number 1. I do think we'll see a lot of Jackson Stauber and probably some of Mitchell Weeks as well at some point this season. But odds are we're going to see a healthy dose of both here to start the year, with Comesso just starting his professional career and Stauber coming back for year number 2. One thing, too, though, that we saw last year from this IceHogs group is once the Hogs find a goalie that is winning games and has emerged as that dominant force, head coach Anders Sorensen will ride him. That's what we saw with Arvid Soderblom last year. Once Arvid got back from injury in January, he played 28 of 35 games to finish the season. So we played 4 out of every 5. And if you take that and if you extrapolate it out throughout the entire season, if he were to play 4 of every 5, that'd be a 58 start season for Arvid. Now, obviously, he didn't have 58 starts, but that's the math on that. Now, obviously, start of the year, you're going to rotate more guys in. Towards the end of the year, when the IceHogs needed some wins to pick up points to get into the playoffs, then you saw Arvid going back to back to back. He played the last 3 games of the regular season in 3 straight nights. He started the last 7 games of the regular season as well. But we have seen Anders Sorensen roll out the same guy quite a bit when he figures that there's a true number one. Will that happen this year? That remains to be seen. But it feels like there's 2 pretty good options right now in net in Rockford. Then the second part, Manny, of that bold prediction is Drew Commesso being an all-star by the end of the year. Now, that'd be quite a feat in professional year number 1. Comesso's looked good so far. Let's not jump ahead of ourselves, but let's go through the all-stars from last season in the AHL. There's 4 of them representing the 4 quadrants, if you will. And the first, Joel Hofer from out east, now with the St. Louis Blues, by the way. Hofer's stats last year, and this is kind of to give us a reference point of maybe what Commesso would have to get to stats-wise. Hofer had a .250 goals against, .921 save percentage. Okay? Moving down the list to Joseph Woll out in Toronto, had an outstanding season with the Marlies last year. He's with the big club right now, the Maple Leafs. Woll last year, a .237 goals against, a .927 save percentage. So better numbers than Hofer, but both very excellent. Out of the Central Division, Yaroslav Askarov was the goaltending representative with Milwaukee last year. He had 20 saves and 21 shots in his season debut against the Chicago Wolves a couple nights ago, so he's already off to a good start this year. But last season, Askarov had the worst numbers of any All-Star goalie, at least in terms of goals against and save percentage. Askarov had a .269 goals against and a .911 save percentage. All right, so the last one is Dustin Wolf out of Calgary in the Pacific, who has also made his season debut, off to a good start with the Wranglers again, stopped 28 of 30 in his season debut. But Wolf last year had the best numbers out of anybody. He had a .209 goals against and a save percentage above .930. So those are the stats of the 4 All-Star goaltenders that we saw last year in the AHL. So if you kind of look at those and you maybe pick a ballpark, if you will, Commesso would have to get to around a .26, .25 goals against average and probably around a .915 to .910 at least save percentage. Now, he's got better numbers than that through 1 game, but again, that's just 1 game. What stands out to me, though, isn't the stats of those 4. It's the teams that those 4 were on as well. 3 of those 4 teams made it to the division finals last year. The only one to not make it was Springfield, but Toronto, Milwaukee, and Calgary all made the Elite 8, so to speak, in the AHL Calder Cup playoffs, and every single one of those teams made the postseason. So those guys who are all-stars in the goaltending department, they were on pretty good teams as well. Now, it's not taking anything away from them, but it's going to be hard to have those elite numbers if you're not playing behind a strong enough defense and if your team's not giving you the run support and you're not playing in these close games. And so that's what you had with pretty much all 4 of these guys last year. I think, Manny, your bold prediction on whether Commesso would be an all-star or not is not just an indictment on the young goaltender. I think you're also saying that Rockford is going to be a playoff team in a lot of competitive games and probably some low-scoring games as well. And this very young defense core is going to make life maybe a little bit easier on Drew Commesso. Now, obviously, the coaching staff, the scouts, and all those things, they can see with their eyes how good a goaltender is playing. But for all the media and everybody that's voting on the All-Stars and people just looking at numbers, those extra couple ticks of a percentage matter quite a bit, and that could be the difference between a defenseman accidentally tipping in a goal or maybe a bad bounce going your way, where it's not necessarily the goaltender's fault, but it counts against his stats. And so you have to keep that in the back of your mind, too, when you're looking at who's going to be an all-star, because it's not always the all-stars that are making the jump up to that next level. And something to note, too, just about all those goaltenders, all 4 of them who were AHL All-Stars last year, have had some kind of NHL experience as well, and all of them had played previously in the AHL, with the exception of Askarov in Milwaukee. It was his rookie year in the AHL last season, but again, he had played in Russia in the KHL a little bit, so he had already had some pro experience, whereas Comesso, man, he's brand new, just out of BU and fresh off of taking the Terriers to a Frozen Four appearance. But Manny, we thank you for writing in your bold predictions, and as always, for any bold predictions and what if, send them to me. Any questions that you want addressed on the show, send them in, and we'll talk about them on the next episode. But our what if for episode 3 comes from Monique in Rockford. Monique says that what if Arvid Soderblom gets sent down to Rockford? Now, Monique, that feels like a negative what if, and we don't want to bring up and dwell on negative what ifs in Rockford with the IceHogs. But Monique posed the question, and I think it bears response. And I'll say this, it's probably not going to happen early on. Arvid is penciled in as the number 2 with the Blackhawks right now. He's already made a start and looked pretty good. He stopped 30 of 32 against Boston. Some guy named David Pastrnak scored on him. But he looked good in his one NHL start so far. And I should mention, too, that we're recording this on Monday before the Blackhawks play the Marlies. Not sure who's going to start in that game. But right now, Soderblom is the number 2 with the Blackhawks. And so we think that he's going to be up there, and the Blackhawks' plan is for him to stay in that number 2 spot, continue to nurture and grow under Peter Mrazek up top. So we're not expecting him down. We're hoping he doesn't come down anytime soon. But my question is, if Arvid Soderblom comes down to Rockford, what does that mean for the other goaltenders with the IceHogs? Does that mean that a Comesso or a Stauber was pulled up to the NHL, that one of those other guys has made that leap? That's immediately what comes into my head. And we've already seen Stauber do that last year, and he played very well in the NHL last year. With the way that the Blackhawks have been developing these last couple seasons, it feels like they really want to take their time with these guys. So we're expecting Comesso to maybe mature a little bit here in Rockford and grow his game into the professional level before he makes the jump to the National Hockey League. But you never know. But Monique, thanks for writing in. We hope that Arvid stays up with the Blackhawks. All right, those are our bold predictions and what ifs for episode 3. Let's take a look ahead at the schedule. The Chicago Wolves come into town Friday, opening night. We hope to see all of you there. If you can't be there, please tune in on AHL TV, 19.2 Circle TV, and Mixler as well. But the Wolves coming into town, I-90 rivalry renews for the home opener of the 25th season of IceHogs hockey. Block party, of course, out at Elm and Main Street prior to the event, so make sure you get there early, get your free T-shirts. Hogs are going to be doing a red carpet walk, so you'll be able to see your favorite players as they enter in their suits, all gussied up. But the first of 12 meetings against the Wolves coming up here on Friday. Last year, Chicago had the better of Rockford, even though the Wolves were not a playoff team. Rockford only went 5-6-1 against Chicago and had some bad losses at Allstate Arena last year. Some notes on the Wolves. They've played one game so far, and they lost 2-1 to the Milwaukee Admirals. Pretty good goaltending performance from Adam Scheel, who was with Texas the last handful of years, got roughed up with the Stars in just a handful of minutes played last year, but prior to that had played a decent amount of AHL action. But it's been Scheel for the time being. This is a veteran Wolves team. They've got 5 guys that played this past weekend over the age of 30. For reference, Rockford has nobody over the age of 30 on the roster. David Gust at 29 is the elder statesman, if you will. But this Wolves group, it lost 2-1 to Milwaukee. They were really outplayed. Got outshot 37-21. Rocco Grimaldi playing with the Chicago Wolves. We know that he can produce at a high level in the AHL. But looking up and down this Wolves roster, we said it a couple episodes ago, but it bears repeating. This is not a group of guys who have just been called up to the ECHL or signed out of oblivion. There's some guys who have been proven at the AHL level, guys who have spent a lot of time at the NHL level or been playing overseas as well. A lot of older players, like we said, 5 over the age of 30. According to Elite Prospects, they're the second oldest roster in the AHL, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means you have guys that are good enough to have played long enough. Their average age is right around 27 years, according to that list on Elite Prospects, second only to Cleveland. So GM Wendell Young has done his best to really resorb a lot of guys coming over from playing in Europe or guys who just haven't landed on NHL contracts this past offseason. And it's going to be a tough test all season long for the IceHogs to compete with a veteran group, considering how young that Rockford is. But moving down the Central Division and getting into some more AHL news, we saw some struggles in the Central this past weekend, and it's early. But again, some things didn't go as we expected. The Iowa Wild got smoked in a couple games by the Henderson Silver Knights. They lost 4-2 and then 7-3 on Friday and Saturday to Henderson. The Knights, a team that missed the playoffs last year. Only 3 goals by forwards in this last weekend's worth of games for Iowa. And this was an Iowa group that we were saying in preseason forward was going to be the strength of this team. They brought in some veterans, brought in some proven producers, got some guys back from injury, but they struggled over the first couple of games. In Iowa, kind of like in Rockford, very young defensive core. They do get Dakota Murmas, their captain, back, but no Joe Hickett's back there. He was quite the wheeler and dealer on the blue line offensively. So they're missing some seasoned hands on that blue line for Iowa. Zane McIntyre got rattled around a little bit on Saturday. He's their number 2 behind Jesper Wallstedt. McIntyre gave up 6 goals on just 15 shots. Rough outing, at least statistic-wise for him. Hand up. Didn't watch that game, so didn't see every goal, but just looking at the score sheet, it wasn't pretty. Also struggling was Texas. They lost a pair of games to Tucson, the Roadrunners. Texas lost 3-2 and 2-1, so they've been struggling in the goal-scoring department as them. Both Iowa and Texas at home this past weekend to open up the year. Texas was hanging up their Central Division Championship banner from a year ago, and they got beat in their own building by a Pacific Division foe. The Central playing the Pacific all over the place here this weekend. Grand Rapids played a Pacific Division team in Colorado, and GR won both games against the Eagles. Grand Rapids won 3-2 and 5-2. The GR goaltenders, Michael Hutchinson and Sebastian Kosa, 81 for 85 saves to shots. That's a combined .953 save percentage. Is that going to come down to earth? Probably. But you'll take 2 wins right off the bat for our friends over in the Mitten State. So we'll take a look at our Central Division standings on the screen here. You can see that it doesn't really mean much early on. The great thing about the first few weeks of the season is that the whole season is like a lump of Play-Doh. You can mold the first parts of the season right when you first pull that Play-Doh out of the yellow tube. You can form it into whatever you want, whatever shapes. You can give it to your buddy, and they can make something out of it. You can mix colors. That's when I would always get in trouble, when the 2 different colored Play-Dohs would mix and they'd get ruined. But later in the year, that Play-Doh hardens, and you are what you are. But early on, everything is malleable right now, and there's really no conclusions to be drawn after just a couple of games. IceHogs are 1-1. Really a successful road trip. You take 2 points on the road out west, and you come home and you gear up after several days off, and you get to enjoy what we hope will be a sold-out crowd on Saturday. We think it might be. If a few more of you guys bring your buddies to the BMO Center on Saturday, we think this place is going to be packed to the gills. We know it's going to be packed and loud. We just don't know if every seat will be occupied. So we're thinking it just might, because we have that block party again before, which we're going to be enjoying the food and festivities. Big Timber is going to be out there with some axe throwing. So stop by downtown Rockford and make an evening out of it. But that's kind of a look at the AHL, especially in the Central Division. On the NHL side, again, we're recording this right before the Blackhawks take on the Toronto Marlies, and Austin Matthews with a couple of hat tricks in his first 2 games. Not a big deal. So we don't have an update on that. But a couple days ago, the IceHogs lost to the Montreal Canadiens 3-2. Blackhawks are 1-2-0 entering the Toronto game on Monday night. A lot of IceHogs making their impact. 6 so far have appeared on the ice for the Blackhawks. We've seen Lucas Reichel in that number 2 center role. We've seen Alex Vlasic look very comfortable on the blue line for Chicago so far. Cole Gutman scored a goal in the opening win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then guys like Mackenzie Entwistle, Reese Johnson as well. Those guys, difference makers in the bottom 6. Haven't seen a ton out of those guys yet, but some fringe guys that are cracking the lineup and making an impact below some of the older guys that Kyle Davidson brought in this offseason. Guys like Taylor Hall, Nick Foligno, Ryan Donato, Corey Perry. been a fun Blackhawks team to watch so far. They've really been in every game that they've played, but only one win as we're recording this right now to show for it. And we were looking at the Blackhawks schedule at the start of the year, and you look at how they started out, Pittsburgh and then Boston, in Montreal, it's going to be a crazy environment. Toronto, you're looking at that and you're thinking, man, when is this first win going to come? Because this is a Blackhawks team that, again, is very young and rebuilding. But they picked it up on the opening night against Pittsburgh, got the monkey off the back, and the Blackhawks home opening night is the same evening as Rockford on Saturday the 21st when the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights roll into the United Center. So that'll be a fun evening at the UC. So a little double dose of NHL, AHL action, both Chicago and Rockford kicking off their home openers on the same evening. But that's enough about the Hawks. Let's get to one of the Hawks draft picks, Nolan Allan, who we chatted with earlier this week. An excellent young man. We talked to him at prospect camp. He gave us some more time this past week, made his pro debut this last weekend in San Jose, and he could be a huge factor on the blue line for the IceHogs. Here's Nolan Allan. All right, here with IceHogs defenseman Nolan Allan. Nolan, thanks for taking the time here this afternoon. Let's get into it, man. You played your first couple games out in San Jose. What was that like, getting the first two pro games under your belt? Yeah,
I mean, it was a pretty good experience. Had a couple preseason games, with the Blackhawks, and then one here in Rockford. But just super excited to get the real season going and get our group together.
What were the first couple shifts like? Was the heart racing a little bit? Like, were you getting used to the speed at all, or did you feel right at home?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. Like every game, I guess you're kind of nervous at the start, and then once you get the first couple shifts into it, I think you just get used to it. And it's just another hockey game.
Well, not a bad way to kick off the career, starting in San Jose, right? Like, how nice was that to have some team dinners and stuff, and start on the road with everybody?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it got a little cold here in Rockford before we left, so it was nice to get back to the shorts weather down there, and then just some bonding time with the boys. I know we had a couple days off down there, so it was really nice.
Playing with Ethan Del Mastro, like a couple of rookies on that same pairing, it took a little bit of trust from Coach Sorensen to throw you guys together, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, two rookie defensemen playing together might some coaches might not like that, but I think me and Del are very familiar with each other's games. We've been around each other for a couple of years now and played with each other a couple times, so pretty familiar with each other.
So you're familiar with each other. Had you ever been paired up like that before?
No, so that was like the first time we've actually ever played together. Usually when we're on the same team, we're always on different pairs, but it's the first time actually playing with him.
What do you remember about him as a competitor at World Juniors and stuff like that? I haven't played with him before.
Yeah, I just remember, he was a huge part of that World Junior team for us. I mean, kind of an anchor back there, big boy, so he can move the puck well, and we try and read off each other out there, and I think we'll grow to learn to play with each other even better.
And are you guys roommates? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We live together too. So.
Oh man, that's gotta be trouble, huh?
Yeah, we're connected wherever we go. So yeah.
Who's the clean one?
I don't really know yet. We haven't really got. We haven't
spent any stuff.
Yeah, we've literally just been setting stuff up right now. So it's kind of just been a mess with boxes and stuff everywhere. So nobody's really a clean one yet, but I don't know. We'll have to find out.
Are you guys cooking or anything? I know they give you a lot of team meals and stuff here at the rink, but are any of you guys cooking anything up?
Yeah, we last night we just had tacos, something easy to make there. Del was the chef last night, so he likes to cook quite a bit from
some seasoning in there.
Yeah, a bit of seasoning in there, a bit of peppers in with the ground beef. It was pretty good actually. So. Del likes to cook, and I'm not complaining about that.
Well, you guys are a couple of the young players that we're excited about here in Rockford, but I know it's early on. Have there been any moments where older guys have pointed stuff out to you and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coming from junior, it's a little bit different, obviously. Yeah. Stepping into pro is another big jump, I guess. So, you learn as you go on, and, the older guys here are great, and, they're great with pointing things out to us and, helping us along the way.
Have you had any, dumb rookie moments yet?
No, I don't think I've had any yet, but I'm sure there's going to be a couple coming here soon.
Have you seen any of the young guys who have had a couple spots where it's like, oh, come on, you can't be doing that or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe a little bit here and there throughout camp and stuff, but nothing that really sticks out right now.
Yeah, we won't ask you to sue anybody either, but talking about being young and turning pro, like what surprised you the most about being a pro hockey player after, I know you're only 2 games in, right? But like what surprised you most maybe about the game or the lifestyle or any of it?
Yeah, I think just about the game. I mean, guys are it's obviously a faster pace out there, and everyone's big and everyone's strong. So there's no really like weak links on any team. Everybody's a good player. So that's probably the biggest thing is 1 through the 4th line, every player can play and do some damage against you when you're on the ice.
Going back to juniors a little bit and talking about those days, you played against Colton Dot quite a bit, would you not have, in the WHL? What were those battles like? Because I know he's a pretty vocal guy on the ice, isn't he?
Yeah, so when he was in Saskatoon there and I was in Prince Albert, we kind of hated each other, and with the rivalry, we weren't friends for sure. So after being drafted here, both of us, we kind of got to know each other, and then he ended up coming to Seattle, and we're worked out pretty well. We're pretty good buddies now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys had pretty much a super team there with the Thunderbirds. It felt like, but what was that like when he came over and he first walks into the room and it was the guy that you guys were trying to kill every time out there when you guys had seen each other on the ice? Yeah,
I know it's obviously a little bit weird at the start. You're looking at him and you're like, oh, I should hate this guy, but now he's on my team and I can't, and it's kind of funny how it works out. I mean, usually the guys you hate the most, you end up meeting them and you're best friends with them. So it's funny how that works out.
Well, and hockey's a small world, right? Like no matter what NHL camp you were drafted into, odds are you're going to maybe know 1 or 2 of those guys. But with the Blackhawks, you know quite a bit of those guys within the organization, whether it's Doc, whether it's Del Mastro. Like how big is that to have guys that you're pretty familiar with and know intimately from playing with at high levels?
Yeah, I mean it's huge. Like you said there, we had I think it was 4 or 5 Blackhawk prospects on the World Junior team. So just knowing those guys, before coming in here, it just makes everything I think a lot easier. Coming down to Rockford, we got 3 or 4 of us that played together. So it's just nice to have that familiarity and a couple of guys on the team.
Yeah, and we saw that play out in the first weekend with you and Del Mastro. Versatile is a word that gets brought up with you a lot. A versatile D-man can do a lot of different things. Do you feel like that's because of your abilities or more so like maybe the way that you approach things mentally? I
mean, I'd say a little bit of both.
Sure.
I think I got the abilities to, be versatile. Mm-hmm. I think I got those skills, but, it's obviously a mentality too. You get, I guess, kind of put in your role to play a certain way, but you can also help the team out in in other aspects where they may need us or where you see fit.
Mm-hmm. Take us back to 2021 and draft night. Where were you? Did you have a party going on or anything, or what was that scene like?
Yeah, no, we didn't really have much of a party going on. It was just I didn't really know where I was going to get drafted or didn't really know what the scoop was, so. I was just kind of sitting at home with, just my family and, a couple buddies. And, sure enough, we're just sitting on the couch. And, my name was called and kind of broke loose from there. I think, half the town came over and turned into a party real fast, I'll say that.
Well, and you're from a small town in Saskatchewan, right? So it was a pretty big deal. Did you get a ticker tape parade or anything like that when you win the first round?
No, not quite a parade, but it was definitely a fun night. And, anytime, I was around town, people are always congratulating me. And, a super tight community. Everybody kind of knows everyone. So, it's just like one big family back home.
So you didn't know you were going in the first?
No, I had no idea where I was going. I heard, maybe late first, probably second round, somewhere in there. But there was no really set in stone where I was going to go. So yeah.
Well, tell us about your community a little bit. Small town. What was it called again? Just outside
Davidson.
Okay, in Saskatchewan, like a few hundred people, a few thousand people. Like, what's it like?
Yeah, it's around 1,000 people. So not the biggest town, but. We got some stuff there. We got a couple restaurants and we got a rink there, and Yeah, I mean, it's a farming community. Most people around farm, like my family. So, yeah, I mean, growing up there was, was great. Kind of knew everyone that I went to school with, and all played in the hockey team, and all those sports together. So it was great. Yeah.
Your family was farmers. Are
yeah.
farmers? Still?
Yeah, we still farm. Yeah.
What do you guys? What are the crops?
Yeah, so we farm wheat, barley, canola, lentils. We have some peas, some oats.
So were you a farmhand in the summertime and stuff like that then, or?
Yeah, whenever I can. I mean, in the city lots for training, but
right.
during the off season. But yeah, whenever I'm back home, try to get out there as much as possible.
Okay. Well, did you ever encounter any? Did you guys have livestock too, or just the agriculture?
Yeah, so we got about 100 head of cattle back home too. So
you're a cowboy, huh?
Yeah, my grandpa likes to. He's more into the cattle than my dad and my uncle are. They're more like to stick with the grain. So he's more on the cattle side, and we go out there and help him, vaccinate them or tag them, whatever we need to do.
Okay. So it's not like the Dutton Ranch or anything from Yellowstone, or is that pretty accurate?
No, not that quite operation, but something similar, just smaller.
Yeah, I got you. So you can ride a horse and stuff then, or? Yeah,
so we actually used to have a couple horses, but with us kids not being around as much,
sure.
we got rid of them. But yeah.
Gotcha. So you were in the city most of the time for hockey. Is that where you pretty much played growing up and stuff?
Yeah, so
in Saskatoon?
I didn't play minor hockey in Saskatoon. I played minor hockey in Davidson until I was in Bantam. And then I was playing out of Humboldt for 2 years there until I got drafted in the Western League. And then in midget, I went up to the city, played there, and then carried on to the WHL.
Well, and in the WHL, your last year, you eventually got traded over to Seattle, and you kind of took on more of a shutdown role in Seattle as well. Was that hard to do in the middle of the season, or was that pretty natural for you?
I think it was pretty natural. I mean, coming into PA, as a 16, 17-year-old guy, I wasn't put in that, offensive role really. I was kind of, focused on more being a shutdown guy. So it was something natural for me to, I guess revert back to. And, I think that fits my game well too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I say shutdown, but I think you're pretty productive in the postseason. I want to say 10 points in 19 games. Was there anything to that, or were you just getting more bounces, or does your game kind of fit the playoff style?
Yeah, I mean, I think fit the playoff style. I mean, more physical in the playoffs, and kind of more tight checking games. But we had a great team there, so I don't think I did too much to put those points up.
Fair enough. Well, going back to Prince Albert again, one guy that you played with, I think he was your leading scorer 1, if not 2 years, but Reese Vitelli, who was in the Arizona system. I had him for a year in Atlanta, down on the coast for a little bit before he got called up, but. He taught us a trick in Atlanta riding the buses where his first bus trip he brought on a plank of particle board and set it across the seats. So that's known to everyone out in the dub, or is that a pretty standard mode of operation? It blew our minds in the coast when we saw this guy sleeping on a plank across the seats on the bus.
Yeah, I don't know if that's known around the Western League. I know in Prince Albert we had those boards all the way up and down the aisles of the bus. We had those boards to put your legs on, but that's the only place I've seen it. I mean, we never had that anywhere else. So it's nice having those things.
Prince Albert, center of innovation. It was hilarious, and it was a game changer too because he started going to Home Depot and carving them out for everybody and all that. But he really changed the game for us. What was he like as a player? Because he was pretty lethal for you guys.
Yeah, he was a great player for us. He was our captain and our leader in Prince Albert. He just showed up every game and was ready to work. Whether he scored or not, he only cared about the team outcome. So he was a great team player for us.
Well, it wouldn't be an interview with a Blackhawks prospect if we didn't ask a Connor Bedard question, right? So
yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask, having a guy like Bedard part of the organization, do you feel like that takes any pressure off of yourself being one of the other high-profile draft picks?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's obviously a lot of attention on Connor, as there should be. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of nice for us other guys. Kevin doesn't have as much pressure on him up there now, and Ethan and Colton and all of us other guys. So it kind of helps out in that way. But obviously super excited to, have him within this organization and, hopefully be a teammate of his one day.
Well, we're excited to keep watching you out there with the IceHogs, and then hopefully one day at the United Center as well here soon. So, Nolan, appreciate the time, and we'll catch up to you down the road.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.